But we're going to do our third speak in our program. And when I asked him what gives you hope, he said the fact that there's been a light at the end of every single one of his tunnels. Please welcome up our next speaker, Brigadier Siachitema.
When I was 6, I was sent to join my father's large polygamous family. It was amazing to be introduced to so many half-sisters, brothers, and their wives. Until now, I had lived in a small house with only my mother and brother. At my father's place, I enjoyed my days praying peacefully with my siblings and my cousins. At the same time, my sisters-in-law, who respected me like their husbands, and called me Mr. Brigadier, would always ensure there was a bucket of warm water for me to bath. They also washed my dead clothes whenever I returned from praying. And then one day, I drove my wire toy car by a female cousin who was about 3 years older than me and was cooking porridge in a tin on a fire. And I accidentally crashed into the tin, pouring her entire porridge on the ground. She shouted, "See what you have done, fool," and slapped me across my face with her palm, striking me so hard that I saw some stars and thought my left eye popped out. Crying in excruciating pain while covering my left eye, I dashed to one of my uncles who I trusted to show him the injury so that he can punish her. To my surprise, he held my small shaking arm and slapped me back on my right cheek and said, "Brig, what the hell? How can you allow a girl to beat you up?" And now I cried even harder. My uncle consoled me and took me to a grass-thatched hut called Chikuta in our language, where only boys and men would sit when either resting or eating. You know, in my culture, women and men do not sit together. My uncle said, "Boys do not cry." He explained how as a boy I was supposed to be powerful, aggressive, and prepared to conquer any girl. Later in the evening during dinner, when all the men and old boys of the family gathered, he recounted what transpired during the day. And they all joined rebuking me that I was a letdown, and that if such ever happened again, they all joining to beat me up. I never wanted to fight. I never fought when I lived with my mother. But now I was required to be and act like a man. So I tried commanding girls to perform some tasks for me, like bringing water or food, or just surrendering a seat for me. And I issued these commands in the presence of men in the family, and I received their approval. To my surprise, most of the girls obeyed my commands, especially the young ones. And the men saw me trying, and they approved it. This was apparently what it meant to be a man. Within a year or so, our gender roles changed. As boys, we were assigned tasks such as heading cattle or clearing trees to make new fields. My sisters cleaned the yard, they collected firewood, and drew water from a distant stream. As part of our training, us boys were given and taught how to use tools such as a pick. A pick is a heavy-duty tool used for digging and crushing stones. I didn't like it. Swinging it up was difficult, and often it struggled to swing it back mid-air until the other sharp edge hit my back. Without wearing gloves, I often developed painful blisters on my palm. I didn't understand why I was being tortured to use such a heavy and dangerous tool. And then one day, our primary school teacher showed us the Zambian coat of arms and said, "Look on that coat of arms. A man is holding a pick. This is a symbol of power because the pick is used for mining. Only men are powerful enough to manage to swing the pick and crush the minerals. See, a woman is holding a hoe, a lighter tool used by the weak for weeding. Boys, be proud of yourselves," he said. We kept receiving these messages. Real men are better than women. They are stronger and they are smarter. Boys were given priority in education while girls were relegated to household duties. Teenage pregnancies emphasized the belief that educating girls was pointless and that their real value was in domestic laws over education. And I tried to keep up. One day in primary school, a girl performed better than I did. And I became so depressed because I believed that no girl should do better than I did. So I worked extra hard, staying late at night studying, and forgoing praying to study to get better grades than the girls did. In high school, I graduated top of the class. While in high school, I studied many texts, including the Bible, that criticized and condemned women. They warned against associating and even touching women. I was so scared and terrified to an extent that I almost refused shaking hands with women. When I completed high school, I started studying marketing. However, after completing the third level of the course, I didn't have sufficient funds to proceed further. So I decided to go to a farm where my elder sister was based to work and raise some funds. On the farm, both men and women worked. Within a year, I rose in rank and became a supervisor, supervising strong men doing piecework. And then one particular day, I was assigned a very important job to make a gravel road up to a construction site for a school and an orphanage. However, the area was highly rocky and it was impossible to drive through. So a major task involved removing these logs. However, most of the logs were stuck in the ground and entangled with the roots. So we needed to uproot the trees to free these logs. To my surprise, I was only assigned women to work with on this important but difficult task. From my experience, this was purely men's job. However, many women were willing to work, and this was the only job then available requiring more than 50 people. But I still believe there was simply no way I was going to perform this job because it requires working with picks, lock bars, sledgehammer, the tools that I had never seen a woman in my life handle. So I requested the farm manager, can you at least give me 6 men to accompany me on this important task? My request was honored and I was given the 6 men. My idea was for the women to be just cutting the small slabs and picking the small stone that were just resting on the surface, and for the men to uproot the trees and remove the rocks that were embedded in the ground. We worked for 2 weeks at a very slow pace because the men were struggling to uproot the trees and to remove the logs. After about 2 weeks, we had just covered about 200 meters. And then one day, I and the other men were struggling to remove one problem rock. Each of us had a different idea of how to clear this log, but none of them was working. So at lunch, I and the other men sat alone, exhausted, separate from the women. I was enjoying my pumpkin under a tree when my elder sister Angela came where I sat and said, "Hey, bro, come, I want to show you something." I followed her, wondering whether she wanted to give me some more food. But to my surprise, she led me to the same problem rock where I found other women had gathered around and asked for my permission to allow them to attempt to remove the log. I reluctantly granted them the permission. Using the same rock bar that we believed was too heavy for the women as a lever, they pressed the chisel tip under the log and wedged a small stone between the bar and the ground to act as a fulcrum, and leaned with all their weight toward the edge of the bar and proceeded to remove the deeply embedded problem rock. I watched in shock. I couldn't believe what I saw. So I asked my sister Angela to continue supervising the entire team while I went home to quietly process what had just transpired. I had just observed women's ability to perform what I thought was men's job, to read and to act in collaboration with each other. The following day, I did not allow any man to join the team that was working on the law. I only worked with women while closely observing how they worked and noting the progress compared to when we worked with men. I worked well and efficiently with women. We worked as a team. During this period, the women shared the numerous challenges they faced in life simply because they were women. I was frightened to hear about the multiple household tasks that they performed before and after our intense load-making jobs. I was disturbed to hear about the physical and financial abuses that they endured. I was upset that their husband controlled their salaries, including what they earned from this intense load-making job. But I was even heartbroken that these powerful and strong women still believed that they would never be equal to men. I began to question some of the rules and practices of my highly patriarchal society. We finished constructing the Lord within a reasonably short period of time. I realized that these women have always been capable. It was only my perception which was wrong. The injustice that the women faced made me change my course of study, and I left the farm to study law. When I completed law, I committed my career to promoting gender equality. And I've been doing this for the past 15 years under the guidance of remarkable female leaders. It is an absolute joy and honor to have played a part under, again, the leadership of great women at the Southern Africa Litigation Center to help a female chief recover her tribal land in Botswana, a daughter to retain her right to succeed her father as a chief in Zimbabwe, and women in Swaziland attain equal marital rights. Thank you.